Hello everyone, I am Dr. Vijay, Dean School of Law at UPS. Welcome to the UPS webinar on contemporary challenges in legal profession, the role of legal education in the digital age. UPS is a state private university established under the UPS Act passed by the state legislature in Uttarakhand in 2003. Though we have petroleum and energy in our name as our legacy, over the years we have diversified into different other specializations. And at present, it is a multidisciplinary university with 7 different schools operating in the areas of advanced engineering, computer science, design, health sciences, business, modern media, and law. Law program in UPS began with its signature BA LLB honors in energy laws in the year 2007, which caters to the requirement of integrated and industry-oriented specialized law programs. And we are striving towards quest for excellence. UPS is a NAAC accredited A-grade institution, and we also have been awarded ASSOCHAM as the University of the Year North India. And we have progressed over the years, and at present we are offering 5-year integrated LLB program with BA, BBA, BCom, and a unique 6-year integration with BTech LLB. These programs are offered with 16 honors of specialization for the students to choose from. And these specializations range from energy law to digital innovation in law. All our programs are offered with the approval of Bar Council of India. Today's program is focusing specifically on contemporary challenges in legal profession and how legal education can deal with this, particularly in the digital age. And for this, to speak on this contemporary area, we have with us Ms. Lubinisha Shah, who heads the legal and compliance for India and South Asia at Airbus. She has more than 15 years of experience providing legal and compliance support to leading global organizations and law firms, handling a variety of commercial issues with a focus on infrastructure, commercial contracting, structuring, disputes, financing, M&A, compliance, training, and policy making. She has also worked as a general counsel with Baker Hughes, a GE company, a full-stream oil and gas company. We will know more about Lubinisha while we speak. Welcome, Lubinisha, to the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
COVID has taught us to deal with uncertainties positively and find opportunity amidst crisis. We regret that Mr. Apar Gupta, who was scheduled to be co-panelist, could not join us for the webinar due to some sudden COVID emergency at his office. However, this provided us with an opportunity to present one of my young faculty colleagues, Mr. Pulkit Mogra, to you. Welcome, Pulkit. Pulkit specializes in the area of technology, law, data privacy, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity with his LLM from Tel Aviv University in Israel. Pulkit graduated from Jindal Global Law School and worked with the international collaborations at the Office of International Affairs and Global Initiatives for some time. He has also worked closely with China University of Political Science and Law in Beijing as an advisor to the University for International Collaborations with European, Asian, and Oceania regions and drafting the policies for international collaborations. So let us begin with our discussion. And the first question, the panel is, what is your experience with digitalization and how digitalization has changed the face of legal profession? So this is just an opening comment, and would request you to set your own background and make your remarks on that. So we'll begin with Ms. Lubinisha.
Super. So thank you, and I hope you can hear me correctly. Of course, technology and everything, but so that's good. So welcome everyone. I'm very honored to be here because it's very rarely that I get to interact with academicians and students. So it's pretty exciting from that perspective. So thank you for having me, sir. You know, it's crazy times, right? I mean, I think we are all struggling, and I think the word we are using is unprecedented, and I'm so tired of using that word, but it is so, and it is crazy, and we're all trying to adapt and being agile and trying to get our work around it. So just to, I think sir mentioned, I've had a long spanning career. I was a guinea pig. I went to law school like the second batch of Nalsar University. So I was like a guinea pig of sorts. And we emerged our way through multiple uncertainties then as well. And it keeps changing over time. Coming to the question on digitization, I think, of course, despite the vagaries which the pandemic has brought, it keeps us all connected in a digitized world. I think the world has shrunk. From a lawyering perspective, online courts, the Zoom meetings, the ability to connect beyond borders has made life so much easier. Like I used to travel at least 10 to 15 days in a month just to connect with my headquarters and do my meetings, and now the same thing is happening but happening remotely, right? So the restraints of borders and the restraints of time is now up to you, and you can manage that very well. And similarly, we are being able to dip into multiple people across the world to get the best of the lot, to be able to have the right conversations and manage our time effectively. On a personal front, I'm also a mom of two children, so I have to do the work-life balance thing and manage online schooling and manage work and everything. So it's an interesting time, to say the least. But digitization, of course, has helped me to be able to continue doing what I'm doing and yet do the other bits as well, right? So I think that's a nice opening remark, and I'm sure Pulkit will have much more to say given his varied experience as well.
Yes, so we will hear Pulkit, but before that, Aydhant Gupta, you have raised your hand. So to the participants, my request is that you can utilize the question and answer box to pose questions to us, so that will live come to us, and we will be responding as we speak, right? So please utilize that chat box or the Q&A session for your questions, and I will be picking up those questions while I speak along with the panelists. So please do feel free to write your questions there. And over to you, Pulkit. Same question.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be a speaker, and first of all, interacting with such a young and dynamic audience that we have. The lovely part about this audience I love is that these are the most tech-freak audience, which have one of the most updated gadgets along with them. I think if you have to learn something about the tech, this is one such a population, I think, which is completely updated way before the pandemic was coming. Talking about the digitization part, our lives are going pretty smooth. We were quite used to digitization only with our personal space, Facebook. We used to say that we are not meeting our friends much more. We are only into Facebook only. But at least in professional front, we were not seeing that much of digitization. I'm living in the same city. Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh is just few kilometers away from me, and yet I am on a Zoom call session with him. And this is how I think as much has affected our personal and professional lives together. We were not used to it. Definitely, we were never used to it. You can see our bills in the parliament were there for the technology law. We were still working on our data privacy law. And then the COVID pandemic came in, and we had these microboost blenders on our innovation and technology. And suddenly we transformed ourselves into the span of few months. And that showed us how adaptable humans can be when the problem is coming in. The good part about it is we adapted. Nothing ever ceased. Yes, we ceased for a few months, but after a couple of 2 or 3 months, students were back to their classes. We were back to our office works. Although there is a debate that how much productivity has suffered, but definitely things have gone much better. Digitization was not in a plan for any of us, at least into this space, but that is all uncertainty has brought in. And I think digitization, apart from digitization of in the legal and professional field as well, digitization has impacted, I think, every single field, whether it's a medical, whether it's a health, whether it's education, whether it's a legal sciences. Now courts are running on Zoom sessions. So this is the power of digitization, first of all, and secondly, it shows us what the world is going towards from. Because the way we have been equipped with digitization now, it won't be easy for us to forget everything, even if the COVID pandemic ends tomorrow. So we are getting adapted to a newer segment of life itself. So digitization is going to stay, whether COVID stays with us or not, it's still a debate, but digitization is something that is going to stay. Yes, sir.
Well said, Pulkit. I think we all have now grappled with this situation, and we are aware now that at least some part of this digitalization will stay back, even if COVID is not. But I feel that there is a lot which is happening around this, and it will take a lot of measures to to keep pace with this particular development which is happening, particularly for the students who are intending to join the higher education now, and they don't have much of an idea of a college. They are coming from school now, from digital school to digital college they will enter. So probably that transition will be quite interesting to watch for. And Lubinisha, I have also got two sons who are studying in school, and I see them studying on the laptop, and it is like, it is such a difficult task. I see their mom, always involved with that. It is very difficult task. I must, salute all the women out there who are taking care of these activities. And I would just move on, and I will give you a brief background as to the participants who would be here. So this will include our students, as well as there will be some potential students who are willing to join law as a profession, because that is what is the title about. And even we will have some parents in audience who will be listening and taking a decision about their kids and child. So to moving forward, Lubinisha, you have worked in multiple organizations like Delhi International Airport Private Limited. You have worked with Baker McKenzie, Wong Liu, Singapore, Ken India, J. Sagar Associates. I was quite happy to see this name because one of our alumni just got promoted as a partner in this firm, and we were very happy about it. So my question is, what are the key skills required to be a great lawyer, and how do I know, I can be one? This is what is a question someone posed, and this is to the panelist for response.
Sure. So I need to rewind a bit in my memory, but I chose to do law back in our times, and I never knew I'd say that, but back in our times, it wasn't something you'd pick naturally. My father is from the civil services, so it was a natural thing to sort of look at that as an option, or the coveted engineering, or the coveted doctor, or the usual safe fields. Right? So I chose to do law, and how I came about that decision was I believed I had a logical mind, and I did do some analytical tests to be able to see that I was more logical than I was creative. So it was a summation of where my strengths lay at that point in time, and I think I made the right choice in hindsight about why I did that, right? So, but again, it was a gamble of sorts because I picked a law school. It was just 1 year from inception. So I did that, and I think it turned out pretty well, because at our point in time, there were just like, 50 students in a batch, and there were like probably 4 law schools, and now there are so many. So of course, the cheese keeps moving, right? Like it will keep moving, and the risks will keep changing. So to pick law, you have to go about picking things for the right reasons, right? So if you were to pick things always in life because it is an easy profession, or because it's quick money, or because lawyers get paid well, or because it's a safe profession for women, those are the wrong choices, wrong reasons to pick it. You pick a career because it best suits your profile. So my advice to both law aspirants and parents is dig a little deeper to see where your real strengths lie and how lawyering can help progress that, right? I think that is one leg of it. There was another question you had in addition to why I chose law, right? There was something else?
Yeah, so that was basically that how one knows that, yes, I am fit for this legal profession or law profession.
And what I did was, in my 5 years of law school, I used every internship. We used to have 2 breaks. I used to use every internship to do something different. So I worked in Law Commission. I worked in 2 law firms. I worked under KK Venugopal. I worked in a company. I worked across in an NGO as well to see, okay, what's human rights all about? What's it all about? So what you study in law school is a bit different from what it translates in reality. So my suggestion is go out there, use your summer vacations, use your holidays, and in a virtual world, you can even do it from where you are, right? Raise your hands for a project, write to people. LinkedIn is we never had all this, right? It's a great platform, connect with people, see if you can get an exposure of the real world in these small capsules, which make you decide why you want to pick a particular field or a particular subject or a particular trait in the future. So that's my very limited advice, because let's not be too complicated, but you pick something what is right for you and not what is right generally. And that's my advice.
Very nice. That is exactly should be the path. Like everybody's path is different. Everybody's course of direction is different. But when you are looking at a particular profession, it has got certain traits. So definitely you look for those particular traits, whether you meet that or not. And one anxiety which always they have is whether I'll be successful in this. So generally means when I have to tell to the students, I say that, see, nothing is cast in stone, or nothing is, you can say that it is this, that is why it will happen like that. So things can change. Like it is all your passion, all your, grit for doing a particular thing. So there cannot be any indicator which you can say that, yes, this is fit for this profession. So put them there or put them there. So Pulkit, turning to you, you observe the students very closely and you have been seeing the world internationally. What you would like to say about the skills required to be a great lawyer, and any tips you would like to give to the potential students, parents attending this particular session?
Yeah. So again, coming back to just rewinding a life a little bit and going back into 2011, when I was making my choice for whether I should be starting with the law school or not. That is a real tough time for both parents and for students to decide whether this is a profession where I can spend my rest 40 years into this one and can still be doing good about it. And trust me, that is not a decision that you'll be making 100% then and there only, although we tend to make it. Just like you, I was also saying that I want to be a corporate lawyer, I want to be this lawyer, I want to be that lawyer. But there are a few things that I was analyzing on my part. What are my strengths and what are my weaknesses at this particular stage? Because when you are choosing your profession, especially when you're entering the school, especially which will be nurturing you for next 5 years, you don't play on your weaknesses at that time. You play on your strengths. Weaknesses are there that you have to work upon at every stage of your life. That is not avoidable. But something that what I saw that I had good problem solving skills. And secondly, my inclination towards social science and few of the characteristics like empathy skills, sympathetic skills, which I was enjoying to be a part of the people as well. So law was one such profession which was giving me a lot of moral satisfaction at the back end, that at least whatever I'll be doing in, I'll be able to justify it to myself at the end of the day and to my own problem solving skills. And then I entered into a law school for 5 years. For 5 years, what all I was working on was completely right from the bottom, because I was coming from a smaller city of Rajasthan, Udaipur. And from there onwards, I had to grow up into a 5-year professional degree into a law school. And this is where you actually start working along with your professors, whether it's your reading skills, your debating skills, your mooting skills, your problem solving skills. And this is a point where you also make a choice which kind of specialization that you want to opt for over a period of time. Because it's not possible right at this stage always to make a correct choice, but don't afraid of making the wrong choices as well. You'll have ample of opportunities to correct it over a period of time. And as Lubinesha said, how important the role of internships can be. Always consider this particular factor, that law school academics, definitely it will prepare you for your 80% of it, but 20% that you have to invest is into your internships for sure, because that might not tell you what to do in life, but from those internships you might get an answer what not to do in life, and that is a much more important answer as well. Where do you not fit in itself? Me, I have done 8 corporate law internships, and then I realized this is not a space where I would be enjoying for my rest 30 years of your life. And then I transformed myself into an IPR and into the tech law position. And that has been one of the most loveliest part of my life, I would say, where I was exploring myself. And then I went internationally as well. I observed the students. And one thing that I have noticed, whether it's a European students or it's Indian students or it's Israeli students, don't ever be afraid to take risks at this part of your life. Your risk-taking capacity is 200%. It's not 100% right now, it's 200%. And make sure of that 200% risk capacity that you're exploring. Do every single thing that you feel like might be right for you, and you'll get an answer for it, even if you're into law. So that is something I would like to guide the students with.
Pulkit, I think, transitions do take place in our lives, and you have to take risks. Definitely, well pointed the things. and to the students, participants who are here, you can change your course of direction or path at any point in time. So that doesn't, make a problem for you at the end. But that brings me to another point, and that is an important point, which relates to, basically we all call, VUCA world. So VUCA is a term which means volatile, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And nothing, this particular term got actualized actually in 2020, and everybody is now quite familiar with this. So someone rightly said, in VUCA world, the secret to success is to develop our knowledge, skills, and competencies at a pace faster than the rate of change of dimensions of the business and external environments of the business. So in this particular scenario, wherein there is a lot of change happening, and Lubinisha, with your experience in different firms which you have worked, as well as the complexities with which you work, what is your take on this particular context? That supplementing my question from the earlier part, that what are the skills increasingly becoming important today for the professionals, specifically in the law?
Sure. So thanks for that. And I was glancing at the questions as well, which have popped up. And the questions like, what are my strengths? How do I figure out which stream to pick? So I'm going to take a step back and say, forget about trying to solve for everything. You can't solve for everything. It'll always be a VUCA world. The scale will keep changing. The dimensions will keep changing, but it'll always be VUCA. So unless until you have an appetite for handling and dealing with ambiguity and embracing ambiguity, it'll always be a little crazy out there, right? So forget about a cyber lawyer or a corporate lawyer or a litigation lawyer. Start with being a lawyer, right? That's my first advice to you. As if you want to pick law, you want to be able to enjoy lawyering and the concept of lawyering and the concept around it. So if you do that well, the natural corollary of where you would land up will happen. That's point number one. Point number two is that the cheese, as I was saying, will keep moving, right? You have to keep adapting, keep learning, keep trying to hone your skills to be able to become a solution provider. Nobody really cares about lawyering beyond a point, be it a litigation lawyer or a cyber lawyer or a lawyer legal teacher. We're all looking to find solutions. And one thing which has helped me in my career is the more you try and ape someone, a partner, a litigator, a CEO, it's going to be very difficult to live up to that image. You have to have something which is what you call brand you. You figure out your own branding style, your own branding personality, your own plethora of your strengths and how you market that, how do you package that in a way that you become more sellable, right? And a couple of things which have helped me in my profession, and I chose to be in a corporate, right? I worked in law firms, I worked with a litigator. You have to do all of that to be able to decide what you want to do. And you have to work hard. There is no shortcut to success. I mean, people want to come and say, oh, I know it all, and I want to go and draft the petition. Great, but you also have to pick and do the Xerox, and you also do the research. You do all of the work to be able to get there. So working hard is no substitute ever for any student. I want to keep saying that because a lot of times I get the vibe that it's very easy. No, it's not. You have to work hard, right? And the last point is, when you're looking at law as a profession, just don't say legal books and lawyering. Look at things beyond that. Be comfortable with accounts. Be comfortable with numbers. Look at industry. Like in my industry, I should be able to sell a plane as much as my sales colleague, right? So you have to be able to know which industry you are in, what is the product, what is the skill set. It is just not lawyering. It's solutioning. It's what I call business enabling. Gone are the days of business support. Nobody cares. Board meeting ho gaya, ye ho gaya. Nobody cares about that. People want enablers, preemptive solutions, risk-abated ideas, processes, guidelines, thoughts, structures. So it's a very different world. So there is no traditional lawyering. So what I want to tell you guys is there are no skill set for a lawyer. It's how you develop what you have in your core, how you package it to be able to move the ball in this VUCA world, which will always be there. You think it will go away in 5 years? No, there'll be a different set of challenges, right? And we have to just roll with the punches, right? So that's what it is.
The challenges will keep changing, and there will be different dimensions, but intelligence will always remain.
Sure.
So that is quite an interesting take, and that is what Rod Neil says. If you think the pace of change is very fast right now, realize one thing: today you are experiencing the slowest pace of change you will experience for the rest of your life. I believe in 2019 people would have thought like that, and 2020, and I believe 2021. If we compare, to me, this particular statement seems to be quite right. Moving further, and a couple of questions have come up on LLM, and as well as there are a couple of questions which have come up for inquiring about the courses. What I would suggest is we kept this particular session specifically for a particular topic. So these questions will be answered to you. I would suggest to all of you, whosoever is interested in these programs and courses, please log into the ups.ac.in, and in the admissions tab, you just register yourself. There will be a counselor who will be helping you for this. So please go ahead with that. So that will be great, and you will get more information than we can give. So all information will be provided to you. There are a couple of queries from LLM students about cyber law I have seen. So cyber law is something which is now changing. So traditionally we used to teach cyber law or information technology law. And that is what we have done. And a couple of students were saying that how often you change the curriculum and look at it, because whether your curriculum is changing pace with the time or not is important. So I would like to tell you that this is quite changing pace in UPS, and we came up with, that is why we came up with new specialization like digital innovation and law. And in LLM, we are offering this time AI and machine learning as a specialization, so which is a unique one, I believe. So just to answer these particular queries, I hope all the queries are answered in the Q&A section, but still I will scroll through it once I hear Lubinisha on this particular point. So Lubinisha, you were part of top general councils of India by the Legal 500 in 2018. Currently, you head the legal committee of the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and has also been named as one of the top 30 leading in-house women GCs in India in 2019. Many congratulations, first of all. And supplement to this, I would like to ask a question, and this question is quite dear to me, and I always ask this question about your journey, because I feel, women reaching at the leadership level is a very difficult task in our country. And whosoever reaches that particular level, we would like to hear, because there are a lot of women participants who apply. And I would like to tell you that we have almost 50% of the women participants as far as your students are concerned, as well as in faculty, we have about 50% of the female colleagues. So what would you like to share with us?
Sure, thank you. I believe you've researched me well, which is good. Good to see, and so thank you for that. No, I think it's been an interesting journey. I won't say it's been hard. So it's not like there is a lot of discrimination and it's tough for women. So I do want to put it out there. I've had great male colleagues, and I've had very good male mentors and bosses who've helped me, including women bosses as well. So I haven't really ever made gender issue in my head. Right. The way I look at it is every organization, and I am a big advocate for that in my organization, have been historically, is that, you work towards gender neutrality. And it's good to see the diversity percentages in the law school, which is amazing, because I have been in very male dominated industries, oil and gas, and now aviation. So it's just, there are no women, few and far between. And in leadership, even lesser. So, you should make gender a non-issue, number one, in your head. Moment it's a non-issue, you can do the right things for the organization and for you. You have to ask for what you need, right? I've had 2 kids. I have never stopped working, but I've also asked for flexibility if I wanted it. And I took it, whether the organization was offering it on a platter or not, right? Sometimes you need to ask for what you deserve. And it is not a benefit, it's what you call the inclusive environment. You can't say that, I want women and not have a safety angle or a creche angle or a work-life balance angle, right? And I really challenge gender-defined roles, women doing this and not this. So I have a big issue with that. And I'm trying to get my boys to look at things in a very gender-neutral lens, that mama will not do certain things, and it's okay for you to do all of this, and that's fine. And even if it's so that's the way I would look at gender. But it will come to you in bits and pieces of surprises as well. It's not all fair and awesome. In a litigation world, it's different. In a corporate world, it's different. It will come to you in different pieces. But remember that there is lots of support systems in an organization outside. You must be able to speak up, raise your voices, ask for things. And women in leadership should promote more women that way. And it's not about just women, it's about just the diversity they bring, in thought, in action, in culture, in conversation. It just helps in the team dynamics and the team culture. It's just a good thing to have. And of course, you'll hire on merit. There are no free cards for women or for men for that matter, right? And today's generation is even more open to so many things. So I want to tell you that it's not going to be easy for anybody, even so for women, as you make choices. When people are going to ask you silly questions in an interview. Are you going to get married? Are you going to have a kid? How will you commute from X? And you're going to say, you should be able to say, that's none of your problem. As long as I'm here and I'm giving an interview, and if you can hire me on merit, you hire me. So sometimes take a stand as well, and that really helps. And again, my last and my final point on this is pick things for the right reasons. If you really want a career, you'll stick to it. Take your break and come back to it. There are lots and lots of programs to be able to further that. But don't just say, oh, I'll pick one for the other and it's a short term or whatever. Just challenge the system, challenge yourself as well, right? So
that's a great take, and thank you for sharing your journey with us. And it is indeed inspiring, and it is very important as well. And you actually touched a very important point, is that it all begins with the person's thought at what exactly you want to do. So first of all, it should start from within, and then thereafter it is about convincing the world. As far as UPS is concerned, I would like to mention that with the vision of providing a fillip to women empowerment through formal higher education, we through the project Shakti offer about 20% scholarship to the tuition fees for the girls' schools. And we also have a program called Shakti for leadership. So the tagline for that is from classroom to boardroom. And you would appreciate that there is serious deficit of women board of directors, like women directors in the boards.
Yeah.
And that gap needs to be filled. There are a lot of gaps which is there as far as gender diversity is concerned. And I believe that there is a lot of opportunity for our female colleagues in this particular area and profession. In terms of the specializations which we are offering, because that was one component which came up in the questions. Pulkit, you are fairly new to the academic profession and have started it, and though you have worked in different areas before. So what is your take, and what you would suggest to the students as to how do they make the choice among the specialization and domains, and which has more career and stronger career opportunity? So your brief comment on that.
Yeah. So ground rule I would like you to follow at this particular stage. This is not a point where you should be making a final decision. There is two things that you would find at UPS or any other law schools which have a good disciplinary course. Specifically, I would like to tell you about UPS because this is something I found it here. Is there openness toward multidisciplinary and cross-culturalism? Okay, so when you are speaking about artificial intelligence, and at the same time, your law school is also teaching you about tech laws, also it's teaching you about medical laws, forensic laws. This is a point of choice. I would like you to think that whatever career choices that you are making right now, that is something, one, you have to explore it over your law school period. So that is why those 5 years that you spend around in a law school is really important about. And as Lubnesh also said, your internship part, that is somewhere you're exploring it. Secondly, which choices might help you in the future is there is no such one field which can assure you that this is going to transform your life. You can still walk into a field such as corporate law and you can bring in innovation and transformation right into corporate law. There have been technologies like blockchain, like smart contracts, which is bringing a revolution in the corporate law field. Lawyers were spending hours and hours in drafting contracts, and with the new technologies that we have in the world, your contract can be drafted into 2 or 3 minutes, which was taking like 100 hours and hours, 10 to 20 hours of just doing all the research. So about which particular field would pay you more depends upon how you would like to look at that particular field and where your passion relies upon. So this is something I won't say any one particular field that is much more lucrative than the other one. That is something you to figure out upon your strengths. And trust me, on every single field that you can choose, you can find out diverse option into them, and you can make them as a strength. Okay, so every single field is transforming right now, right? From your medical is also transforming. You can see your railways are transforming in India. You can see how we are transforming right now in terms of railways in the last 10 years, how Indian Railways has transformed. Legal education has transformed. We are teaching on some other platforms now, because when we were into law schools, we never thought that law education can be done via home as well. We have engineering schools as well, which are doing their lab experiments as well via online teaching. So this is how transformation is happening.
Yeah, thank you, Pulkit, for that particular tip. And, I often get this particular question whenever a first year student comes up, I want this particular specialization. And my next question to the student is that, what is this specialization all about? And the answer is, there is nothing. So basically what happens is you go by the nomenclature, go by the fact about it. Probably that is not the right way to look at a specialization. See what exactly is being taught there, and then take a call as to how it works. If you talk about digital, developments, cyber law, then you have to see what are the contents, what is being taught there, and then accordingly take a call. And make your choice. As Lubinisha also pointed out, that you have to make the choice. You have to make your area very clear, and then move ahead with your decision to do the things. And that is, as I told you before, that it is not the last point. It is like you can always review that particular thing over the course of your 5 years, because plenty of things will change. Once you do one internship, another internship, your interest will change. And that I have seen students doing that. So there is no harm in that. Moving ahead, Lubinisha, since the past year, I was reading your CV, and you have led many compliance initiatives, and I own compliance, speak up campaigns, and would you like to throw some light on this and how it is important to keep pace with the digital innovation and legal developments which is happening? And there is one query which I will tag it along. People are fearing that whether technology will take away the lawyer's job.
Yeah, I don't think AI is going to get there very, very soon, and I hope not, right? I definitely need a job. So, no, it's an interesting question. So, for the audience, I want to first explain what compliance means. Essentially, people look at working in a company as just drafting contracts and that's it, right? Or just doing nothing. I don't know what people perceive it as, but it being working as a lawyer in a company, it's pretty much you do everything, right? So one hat I wear is governance, which means I have a company secretary in my team, and we organize the board meetings, the governance, the shareholder meetings, and all the related regulatory work which we do. So that's one leg. Two is the legal work which we do when it comes to not just litigation. Not every company is very litigious, right? But not just that, but contracts and negotiations, risk profiling, supporting for multiple contract executions, etc. And the third one is compliance. When I say compliance, especially multinational companies, whether it's US or whether it's Europe, have certain regulations because of which we need to have certain internal compliance ethics policies, right? Be it FCPA in the US or be it SAPIN in France, we need to do certain things to be able to be ethically clean, right? So compliance is one hat I wear, which is everything from policy making, be it prevention of sexual harassment under Indian laws, be it just safe to speak up sessions, whatever it is. So one is the policy, which is in line with the global policies. Two is the training awareness, because it's also very touch feel. How do you train and build a culture of compliance? Because you deal with third parties, government, bribery angles, all of those, right? So how do you train and aware? And third is investigations. And when something goes wrong, what do you do to be able to fix it, apart from audits, etc. So that's when you say compliance, that's what it means. In Airbus, because it's a European company, we have separate regulations, and I have headquarters in France, Germany, and Spain. But in India, we have a very robust compliance program, which we've set up in lines with the global thing. So we do a lot of campaigns, and every year we define a theme. And I try and make it different every year. So last year was ION compliance, which means you personalize the messaging of compliance, which means you get leadership to talk about compliance, you talk about policies, you talk about people doing the right thing when no one is looking. And that was our big tagline. Last year it was integrity always. So we try and do these campaigns and do posters around it, awareness sessions, smaller huddles, leadership talks, videos, merchandise, to keep the conversation alive on compliance. And people are asking whether they'll get legal jobs in companies. But it's not just legal jobs. There are so many compliance jobs, there's so many ethics jobs, there's so many governance jobs, there's so many risk jobs, right? Where you do risk profiling for companies. So there are so many allied conversations which will come about. And with the world changing, you'll have so many more opportunities beyond just the traditional legal officer role. So once you open your mind, you will see that there are varied things which you can do if you have a lawyering degree or the basic skill set of lawyering.
That's the dimension, and that is what I say, that one of the most employable graduate is a law graduate. So he can fit or she can fit anywhere in the organization if you want. And this brings me to one question which Saira has posed, and she's saying that why don't you include legal knowledge and this study in the higher secondary education, so that it becomes easy for them to prepare for the entrance examinations of law schools.
I agree. I mean, logic is the basic skill set. So if you see MBA entrance examinations or this logic is a paper, right? So logic is a skill set which every professional has. And just like what you would develop in other subjects, you can even have logic so that your mind starts thinking like that. But what you do have is like a maths or like a commerce or something. I was an art student, so I did like history, sociology. But when I look at what I learned from there, I had political science, right? So that's really helped me. Sociology helped me. Society, functions, people. So there are multiple things you can draw from what you study as well. It's not just lawyering as a particular subject, but if you see what you have and try and see how you can hone those conversations and pick up and build your profile, that's also doable. But good suggestion. I mean, we should write and see what's possible.
Yes. I recollect there is one paper on legal studies in 12th, I think 11th and 12th, there is a paper on legal studies. So, but this is an optional paper. So people can,
okay.
It was not there in our times, but definitely now the younger generation have. So in 11th, they can choose for legal studies, and that is a good paper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am aware.
Is that CBSE?
Yeah, CBSE.
Okay.
CBSE, ICSE as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, so because I authored a book on 11th legal studies, so it is in print. So that is a good, because it gives you the basic understanding of law. What Saira you have been speaking about.
Sure.
So this is great. Now let me move to our last leg of meeting and webinar. So there is one important point, is about managing crisis. And I heard you, Lubinisha, on this particular point. There was one conference, I think probably ET conference, on which you were speaking on this topic.
Yeah.
And we here at UPS are also looking at that particular dimension. And you spoke about a very important point, is that we are not only focusing upon the core subjects. It is important to learn the life skills, because if you have to progress and work in your life, understanding these life skills are very, very important. And that is, it is about, training them about different way of looking at the things, trying to understand the contemporary issues, what are the requirements of mandatory social and professional internship experience, and so forth. So how do you look at this crisis management part of it? Because I believe at present, the students are into this mode because for them it is a crisis management. Online classes, online examinations, examination schedule being changed so many times, and don't know what to do, how, where to go. So, what would be your tip to the
Yeah,
potential?
I think crisis is a scary word. I just so I wouldn't don't worry about the crisis. Just that life is going to have a lot of uncertainties, right? Personally, professionally, socially, and otherwise. And what the most stronger you get as a person, the easier you'll be able to handle crisis, be it professionally or personally. So that's the first point. I mean, as a lawyer, I get like every day something or the other comes up and there is a particular crisis. What organizations are looking to do is not just solve for crisis, but look at preemptive solutions, right? When I say preemptive, you need to think about and see, okay, COVID has happened, it's going to stay, we are going to be online for a long time. What are the risks which will come? Privacy, cybersecurity, cyber issues, data, personal data. So you have to start thinking about the risks which would emanate on account of a particular circumstance and try and think of preemptive solutions to be able to plug those risks, right? Because you can't wait for something to happen and then fix it, because then you're not really thinking smart. Um, so that's really helped me. So to be able to think before and think of risk abated solutions. When I say risk abated, there's nothing risk free. Even for you personally, you'll make a choice, it'll be wrong, something will happen, you have to rechange, you have to pivot. That's just life, right? But to be able to come up with risk abated, okay, I have chosen this decision because it abates my risk to a certain extent. It's not risk free, but it's a lesser risk to take. And that's how organizations value you, because you're looking at solutioning before um, the shit hits the ceiling, right? So I think that's very important. From a crisis management perspective, a lot of interesting profiles are happening now with enterprise risk management, multiple tools on account of what you can do to be able to understand risk holistically. And the only way you can do that if you understand the industry in which you operate, what you sell, how you sell, what you do, whether it's a law firm or whether it's the client, whether it's the company. If in a law firm, you have a client brief, you do understand what the client is selling, why is he selling, what is the risk he will get today, tomorrow, future, and then solve for it. Similarly, in a company. So, and I think kids get really puzzled with crisis and they're struggling to solve for it. But the idea is don't solve for it. The idea is think about it as a stepping stone, right? It's a good thing. I mean, look at the brighter part of all of this. We are being able to do this. I would have been able to come to Dehradun very easily. And the fact that we're able to do this and have this conversation, this is great. And many things will emanate on account of this. So let's look at only focusing on the positives and then see what you can pull out from there and solve for crisis. If your lens of crisis becomes solving, it'll be fine. The moment it becomes scary, you can't solve for it.
So the tip lies is basically that don't be scared with the crisis. Think about it, and there will be plenty of solutions. And if I may, move ahead, and I think we are almost close to our session. It is almost an hour, so we will have some parting wishes for our participants. So Pulkit, to begin with you, what would be your last statement, which you would like to make to this audience?
Yeah. So at times when you're choosing a law profession, I would like to always tell you one thing. Lawyers are one of the best entrepreneurs. Okay, because that is exactly what entrepreneurs are doing all their lives. And this is what we are made for, is to solve the problems, bring in solutions from the points where the world might see that the solutions are impossible. So lawyers should have this entrepreneurial mindset, and always remember that if you are into this law profession, your entrepreneurial mindset will grow every day in, day out, because it's not the one that we are only solving problem as a lawyers. We are also policy masters. We're also making policies for the country. And when Lubnisha was saying that we have to assume some of the risk, that is exactly what is the policy making is all about, where you're sitting in a company and you're drafting policies that what might happen in the future and how you should have to deal along with it. So as a lawyers, you are one of the best critical problem solvers for society, for your organization. And you'll, over the period of time, you'll realize that how these things you'll adapt it even in your daily life, in your personal life as well, in your home as well. And this entrepreneurial mindset will grow manifolds over the period of time. Whether then you choose to come into academics, whether you choose to come into say private law firms, or whether you choose to come into governments. We have lawyers like Kapil Sibal who have been one of the best ministers as well of the country. So as a lawyers, it's a holistically developing field. That is all I would like to tell you. So explore this profession. I would say it's a lovely profession. It's a very noble profession. It's one of the profession that has a highly rated amongst the world. When you say that you are a lawyer, you carry a lot of baggage of morality, positivity along with yourself as well. So that is all. Last statement.
That's great, Pulkit. Thank you for that particular tip, and Ms. Lobinisha.
Okay, great. I'm going to say something fun, right? Don't take life too seriously, right? You aren't going to get it out alive anyway, right? So we're all going to, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So, enjoy being a student. When I look back, don't try and solve too much for the future because one, you can't solve for it. Two, you're wasting all your energies on something which hasn't happened. So enjoy being a student. You're a student today, or you will be a student tomorrow. So enjoy this phase. Do these bits and pieces of exploration to see where your skills lie, and just enjoy this phase of being a lawyer. Don't try and solve too much. Oh, I have to become a cyber lawyer or a company lawyer, or get this salary or do this. Just enjoy being a lawyer. Hone your skills. Have fun. Right, have fun. I think it's very important to have fun and grow as a person. So the more you grow as a person, the more smarter you are, the more stronger you are in your head. All of the rest will happen. Everything will happen, and just have faith in yourself as a person. Moment you have faith in yourself, all of us are going to have faith in you, right? So I think that's my 2 cents to all of you.
It was great. Thank you, Ms. Lobinisha and Ms. Pulkit, for this particular session. It was a wonderful interaction. I must say that everybody must have enjoyed. Thank you, the participants, as well as students and parents who have joined on Facebook Live. It was a great interaction, and looking forward to host such webinars for you in future. Thank you, and thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.